And welcome everybody. Now, most of you are aware, if you've followed my channel, I have been doing things like Revit videos and all that sort of stuff. Now, as a tutor in the building design industry, I started thinking about, well, it's actually probably just as important, if not more important, to start talking about and doing videos about why we do design. Why do we have rules, and where do they all come from? Now, if you're a student, whether you're in architecture or building design, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you're going to be going to classes, you're going to be learning all sorts of stuff, okay? And probably the most fun part that you'll be learning will be the design and using the computer to create all sorts of wonderful, pretty pictures. Okay, but there are some harsh realities to what we do. Okay, and one of the big things is that we can design the most beautiful buildings in the world, have the happiest clients in the world, but if we can't get that building to be compliant with local and national rules, then your work is for nothing. Okay, that is the reality. So as designers, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and I would like to start doing some videos, I think, to start from there and then work our way into actually applying that to real situations or etc. Okay, so this video is going to start with, we've got a whole series of things to talk about here, okay? But at the moment, this is really about legislation. We're just going to talk about this first one here, which is the local regulator. Okay. Now, the way I've split this video up, or this I suppose this visual information up into is, I've got a general phrase here. Okay. So I talk about local regulator, Act of Parliament, state regulations, local government, and building code. Now, those phrases could probably be applied quite comfortably around the world, wherever building is obviously controlled. There will be slightly different names and versions of it, but at the end of the day, there are several layers that we need to adhere to. Okay, now I'm based in Australia and in the state of Victoria, and I'm going to talk about our equivalent. At the end of the day, I teach in Victoria, so this is where my focus is going to be. But again, I'm going to try and talk in language that can be applied globally, I suppose, is a nice word for it. That you can look at this and go, right, well, okay, well, this works in Victoria. Maybe I can find my local, regulator. Okay, so hopefully this gives you the prompts, the understanding of where it all comes from. Okay, but for starters, we're just going to start on in this video here. We are going to go and we're going to look at this part here. Okay, which is that was always going to happen, wasn't it? Try as when you bold things, your tabs will go out. Okay, so the local regulator. Okay, so basically the local regulator is, and this could be national or it could be state-based. It depends on how your country's politics are basically resolved or sorted out. But the local regulator is basically the overarching authority on what needs to be done. And what we're talking about here is mainly registration of practitioners and builders and things like that. Okay, so when I go into Victoria, we have the VBA, which is the Victorian Building Authority. Okay, so I'm going to open up the website in a moment. And we also have the ARBV, the Architects Registration Board of Victoria. Okay, now, I'm not an architect, okay? I do not profess to be one, and I don't claim anything with regards to architects. But I have worked with architects, and I am, basically familiar with the fundamental processes of it. So please, Architects Board, please don't sue me. I'm here to basically promote your your world as much as my own, I suppose, at the end of the day. Okay. But anyway, as far as I'm going to go with regards to the Architects Registration Board is that their job is to register architects. Okay, so an architect goes through, does their bachelor's and master's at an approved university, they do some work, get their hours up, and then they go for registration. And the ARBV in Victoria provides that process and registration for them. Okay. For myself as a building designer, okay, I have to get my registration through the Victorian Building Authority. Okay, so that's where I go. Now, the Victorian Building Authority also registers builders, building surveyors, they do inspections, they basically control the industry. So they do have some they can look at projects that architects have completed or drafted up or are managing, and they can be inspected by VBA members. But the VBA cannot register an architect. So that's where that relationship is. So anyway, let's go and have a look at the VBA website just to sort of help you out, and we'll go from there. So let's go into my Chrome, and here it is. Okay. Now, this used to be called the Building Commission Victoria or something to that effect. It changed a few years ago. So it's now the Victorian Building Authority. And this is their homepage, their splash screen. Righty-ho. So fundamentally, that's their job. Okay, they regulate building and plumbing industries, protecting the community, and empowering practitioners. Okay, so let's just do a quick scroll down here. Okay, so if you're a consumer, practitioner, you can come in here and go, I want to do something. There we go. I want to learn about the building process. We're not going to go there. We can look for information, practice notes and resources, technical advice. Fantastic for us as practitioners in the industry. And these are available for architects and building designers, anybody in industry. Okay. They have news and events. They even have a report card. Okay. So just to indicate this is what they do. So they, from April to June 2019, so what's that, April, May, June, 3 months, 2,874 proactive inspections, i.e. they inspected building sites and they didn't tell the builders. Okay, they just turned up, where's your documentation, we're going to have a look at it. 145 investigations commenced, 199 plumbing investigations commenced, and 22 show cause notices. So there obviously is some significant compliance issues with these ones. So 22 people or projects have been shown, hey, you need to show us why we shouldn't close the site down, or you need to fix things. Could be a number of different things that we could, that could be dealing with there. Okay, but 2,874. Let's do the math. So roughly 90 days. Divide that by 2,874. Ooh, that didn't work, did it? 2,874. Let's try the math around the other way. Divide that by 90 days. Equals. So about 32 inspections a day across the state. Okay. Sounds a lot, but it's not really much when you consider the number of projects going on at any one time. But honestly, it was probably more than it used to be. Okay. Now, when it comes to legislation, okay, this is where I want to be sort of showing you. So this is what the VBA is and does. Okay, so if I go to this building industry tab here, okay, and if I go to the building regulatory framework, okay, this is going to take me to the website where it basically tells us this is how the law works here, okay, for the state. So we have the building regulatory framework, okay, and the VBA is their job to basically manage this, okay. So it's just a very brief introduction to things. So the overarching piece of legislation is the Building Act 1993. Okay, but it is current and up to date. There are amendments released quite regularly. Underneath that, we have the Building Regulations 2018 and the Plumbing Regulations 2018 as two separate pieces of information or law. Okay, then they go down, and these tie in with the National Construction Code series. Now, in Australia, the National Construction Code is our building code. Okay, and it is nationwide. So we have the Building Act, which is Victoria. They have these regulations, which are Victoria, but they reference back to a national code. Okay, and with that code, and we'll talk about this later on, the national code has variations that apply to each state. Okay, based on their particular needs. Okay. Within the National Construction Codes, we have the Building Code Volume 1, Building Code of Australia Volume 2, and the Plumbing Code of Australia Volume 3. Then we have referenced documents, okay, and they're typically Australian standards. And we're going to talk about a lot more about that later on. Okay, but you can go to this website and it will talk about, what the building regulations are, what the construction code is, and what the Building Code of Australia is. Okay, so that is the overarching thing. So if we just go back to our Revit splash screen, I love using Revit. It's just a nice tool to use, even for presentations and things like that. Okay, so like I said, the VBA, Building Victorian Authority, for me as a building designer and for all building designers, they control our industry effectively, and they also provide the registration for us. So one of the key things here in Australia is that you cannot, in Victoria anyway, you're not allowed to put your name to a set of building plans and get a building permit without being a registered practitioner. Now, that is either a registered architect or a registered building designer. Okay, and if you hear any squeaking, that's my cat trying to get in the door when another door is open. Righty-ho. So what we're going to do is we're going to call it quits there. The next video I'm going to talk about is Legislation Act, Department Building Act, and just go through a couple of sort of key clauses in that. It's a big piece of legislation. It'd take forever to read, and you'd probably want to stab your eyeballs out if I was reading it all to you. But there's a couple of key areas I want to show you, and then we'll keep it relevant for what we're doing as building designers and architects. Yes, it includes you as well, without me being an architect. Okay, but we will see you later. Oh, now the other thing, forgot to mention, please subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I've also got videos coming out for sale, for other stuff. But please subscribe. I'll try and keep you up to date. Okay, see you later.